that is what kind of kept pushing me along to keep searching and looking. And again, we're not perfect people, and we have lots of dips, and being kids at a certain age, you can kind of control what they eat a little bit because you're the one making the food. But there comes a time when, like you said, that they start making choices on their own.
Welcome to the Radiant Mom Rising, the podcast that's all about celebrating and empowering the incredible hardworking mothers out there. I'm your host, Mary Dibble. I'm on a mission to equip you with the tools, strategies, and inspiration you need to conquer the challenges of motherhood and life, all while embracing your radiant self. Join us each week for amazing guest interviews, relatable stories, and a whole lot of fun. We're here to create a vibrant, supportive community where we can be our authentic selves, where no one feels alone, and where we uplift and cheer each other on along this incredible journey of motherhood. So, fellow Radiant Moms, get ready to rise, shine, and conquer the world. Let's grow together, laugh together, and make every week a celebration of the powerful, radiant moms we are. This is Radiant Mom Rising, and you're part of a community where your brilliance shines through. Are you ready to rise with us? Let's get started.
Thank you for tuning in to Radiant Mom Rising. I'm Mary Dibble, your host. And today I'm interviewing the awesome Robin Jonas, who is a former educator, a mom of two beautiful girls who inspired her to go on this journey, and a wife of Darren, who supports her vision to impact other women's lives. As a stay-at-home mom, she had no clue what that would bring. Over the last 20 years, she's been learning, shifting, and growing, which has led her to create a healthier, balanced lifestyle for her family, which has been quite an adventure. She has learned how to be the best health advocate for herself and her girls. Robin listens to her gut and understands that each of them need different things when dealing with their bodies, whether healthy or sick. She is a lifelong learner and loves sharing and empowering women to go on their own health and wellness journey to create the life they desire by implementing the 1% shift mindset. What she has learned for sure is that we cannot grow without pouring into ourselves. Robin went back to school to blend her education background with her passion for health and wellness. She is most passionate about guiding women to reclaim their energy and create better health to lose weight without dieting, but by simplifying information and creating change with ease with 1% shifts. Creating small shifts that lead to sustainable habits is what helps her clients gain the best results. She encourages her clients to focus on self-care, sleep, mindset, whole foods, plates filled with color, healthy swaps, and movement that brings joy. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the Radiant Mom Rising podcast. I'm Mary Dibble, your host. I'm excited for everyone to be here. I have a great guest with me today, Robin Jonas. She's a nutrition health coach who's in holistic health. Robin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. I love coming on and just having authentic conversations with someone that is like you, who is really looking to grow, and, you're passionate about not only being a mom, but doing things for yourself to have your best health and wellness. So again, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I love connecting with beautiful women, supporting, encouraging, embracing life, going on this journey together so we don't have to do it alone. I think it's beautiful. So we would love to hear more about you. Tell us a little bit about your journey. What's you've gone through, ups and downs that have led you to be where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. So in my past life, I was a teacher. I've always had an interest in education. I've always had an interest in empowering people to learn on their own and to discover things that build them up as a person. That's kind of been, I think, something that's just been innate in me my whole life. And then once I had kids, I was a stay-at-home mom. I still dabbled in fundraising and nonprofit because I believe in supporting and community and all of that stuff. So I did a little bit of that. And I think having kids, as most moms know, when your child is up against something, it just makes you flip a little bit. I call it mama bear, but when people say that, they're fine when they're not fine, when you get a diagnosis of something, but it's just quote unquote a virus, or it might last 8 weeks. And so there was just a little bit from each of my children that didn't sit well with me. And so it really got me going and looking and seeking different opportunities and different practices, because the Western part wasn't fully working for us. Now, I do believe that there is a place and a time for that. I believe that, medicine is needed sometimes. I believe surgery is, sometimes what has to happen, but I don't believe that that should always be your first go-to. I think that there is other stuff that you can kind of delve into to see what works for you and what doesn't. And again, when people back in the day would go to their doctor, it was like their doctor was God. They just believed whatever they said and whatever. And doctors are trained in certain things. And what I realized, though, is that they're trained in very specific things, and they don't really look at a person from all aspects. And if you think about your body's like an oiled machine, but your brain is not separate from your gut, and your gut's not separate from your cardiovascular system. All systems work together. And so just like a car, if you put gas in it, but you never change the oil, eventually it's going to break down. And so, it's an analogy that makes sense to people, but we don't often relate that to ourselves because we haven't been taught that. So I think there's a lack in education for our children and for us as adults, but I feel like we're kind of in a space where we can educate ourselves, but we really need to empower our kids to go start the journey earlier, so that they have a different outcome. So anyways, that led me basically to finding when something is wrong with my children that, we've addressed. For one of my daughters, she had upper respiratory issues. She has a dye sensitivity, and she had eczema really bad. And at one point I thought she might have ADD, but honestly, what all of that was her gut. Her gut she had dysbiosis, she had candida. And I'm talking, this is years of learning tiny little incremental things. We figured out the dye portion fairly early on. We figured out dairy fairly early on, but I didn't understand the correlation of the gut health to all of that. And so that was something that kind of came up in her tween years, when I thought she might be ADD. But honestly, it was that her hormones were out of whack, and because her gut was out of whack, because your gut and your brain are connected. They talk to each other. And so if one's out of whack, most likely the other is going to have some dysbiosis or out of balance issues also. And I was very shocked to find out, by just addressing the gut issues and supplementing a little bit of the hormone part. And when I say hormone, I'm talking about GABA, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, those things. And just kind of giving that a little boost while working on the gut. She literally was a different child. So I'm not saying that ADD medication is not necessary for some, but that's not where you should stop. That's just the beginning of the journey while you learn what is the root cause. And so I'm very root cause focused. For my other daughter, she's 20, and she's, we ate a certain way here, and she went off to college. Well, that's a time of growth and exploration. And, sometimes when you're that age, you don't always do what's best for your body, and those are called dips, and everybody has them, and that's okay. It's what do you do with the dips when all of a sudden you're not feeling well? And so for her, it was a little bit different. She had some different reactions, like breaking out, acne, and things like that. And just by, again, going to somebody who is more holistic and functional, they do different testing. And, at first people just wanted to address the topical part, but I knew that it was an internal, because everything starts internal and just kind of shows itself on the outside, if you will. And so we really, again, got down to the nitty gritty, and she did an elimination diet. She knows that she's, gluten sensitive. So there's just some things within her that she now, as an adult, needs to address. But again, everybody needs to give themselves grace as you're going through the journey, because there is no end in your health and wellness. It's just literally a journey that you will be on for your whole life. And when I decided to go and get certified, I really did some research, and I wanted to do more of the holistic. And that's where I'm an integrative whole nutrition coach, because we look at people from their entire body, from a perspective of what we call primary and secondary foods. And just a little background, primary foods are all things that feed you off of your plate. That could be joy, spirituality, career, home cooking, home environment, relationships. things that people don't really necessarily contribute to health. And then secondary foods are all things on your plate. And so when I work with someone, we don't just do food, so although it's a nutrition coach, it's integrative. And so we integrate life and all parts of life into what we do.
I love that. That's amazing. I mean, this is so important. Luckily, people like you are bringing more and more awareness to this. And you're right. It starts with our kids. As we become adults, we get the abilities to make changes and stuff. But imagine how much better our kids' lives can be. And we don't live in a world where people stop and think about what we're doing to our insides. I know I'm a little guilty of that. My husband actually is a very nutritious person. He's very healthy oriented. And I just didn't grow up like that because my mom, she's from Trinidad. And so they eat the curry and stuff like that. Now I can't even eat spicy foods. I'm nothing like my heritage because I'm half Puerto Rican, half Trinidad. I'm nothing like them. So I don't even speak Spanish. I'm a little unique with that, but I grew up in Wilkesboro, North Carolina, of all places. So I'm practically a country girl. And so growing up, my mom never forced me to eat my vegetables. She eats a lot of carbs. And what's sad is diabetes runs in our family. So now I'm at my age, 36 years old, and I'm nervous because I'm like, oh my God, I want to avoid that. Because if I can avoid it, because I've avoided it in all my pregnancies. Yes, which is awesome. So I would love to work on being more conscious of things like this. I think this is wonderful. Honestly, you make me want to work with you because I love what you're doing, because that's so important. And so many of us are not as educated on those things that are good for us. And we're not even connected to who we really are overall. And this is a beautiful way to get connected with yourself, and a way that not only brings you mentally and physical health, but just helps you to be more in tune with who you are. And that's what I'm all about.
And I think it's so interesting that you talked about your heritage, because a lot of habits and food habits in general, and movement habits, and all your habits really, they do somewhat stem from your heritage, whether you live out your true heritage, with the foods, and it's still like an innate, it's your constitution, basically. It is what your makeup is. And so now that you grew up in America, and, you've been kind of conditioned to the SAD diet, which has its place and its purpose and all of that, but you're getting more conscious, right? You're getting more conscious and aware of what foods can do to you, good and not so good. And everybody's different. That's the other piece that I love about what I do, is we have to look at everybody from a bio-individual lens, because what your heritage is, how you grew up, what you find as to be yummy food versus foods that really repulse you. There's just a whole host of things that go into looking at somebody from a holistic perspective. And what I find fascinating about that is two people can go in and get the same diagnoses, and because they have such different backgrounds and such diversity, they can overcome it differently from different tools and tips and things like that. And so I think it's very interesting that, again, we've been kind of conditioned that if you have this disease, this is the steps that you take. Well, that doesn't work for everybody. It works for some, but it doesn't work for everybody. And there are some generalized things. Obviously, sugar is a generalized thing. We want to eat less processed sugar, more raw sugar, and, healthier. There are sugars that don't have as big of a glycemic spike. So if you're somebody worried about diabetes, that's a conversation that, can be discussed. And then you just learn what you can do to make the spike a little bit less. And again, it's about listening intuitively also to your body. If when you eat something, your body doesn't feel good, your body's talking to you, right? If you have a disease or a condition, that is your body speaking to you and saying, I'm starting to break down, and so it's about looking at, again, all of those things, and then what your goals are, because everybody's goals are different too. Some people are more conditioned or, have that diet mentality. And so it's undoing that portion. Some people are more into, like, you must exercise 50 times a week. So there's just a lot of mindset stuff to work through also. And again, what's good for one person could be poison for another. And that's where the bio-individuality comes in when working with someone.
That's awesome. And you have 2 daughters?
I do.
Okay. How old are they?
They're 17 and 20 now.
17 and 20 now. And so, but, when you started this though, how old were they?
My first daughter was a year when I went to my first little experience that I had told Mary about before was, I went to a gym when we moved out of state just so that I could have something to do, basically, because I didn't grow up in a family where movement was really brought to the forefront and was important other than just exercise if you want to lose weight. That was kind of the mentality of my family. So, but I went because I really needed an outlet. And so one of the things that they offered was if you took 2 nutrition type classes, you could get a free spa treatment. And I was like, sign me up. And I was thinking, honestly, I would take the 2 classes, I get the spa treatment, and I move on with my life. But it was a life altering experience for me. And sitting in that classroom and having that gentleman, I wish I could remember his name, stand up and talk about high fructose corn syrup and hydrogenated oils. I literally left there, and it was like one of those things that when you see something, you can't unsee it. And so I went home and I went through our pantry, and we were really literally left with not much. And so that kind of started the journey. But then my daughter have just colds all the time and things like that, and turning into what they called non-allergic rhinitis. So it was like, get rid of all scents in your house. So that really started me on a different path of like products and non-toxic. And so that's been another piece of my journey. Again, that's holistic, looking at everything that can affect you from environmental to internal. So then my other daughter had eczema. She had some upper respiratory issues. And so we really dabbled in chiropractic and acupressure, which helped her lung capacity and all that stuff really shift and change. So I think it was by me taking little tiny steps and trying little tiny things, and then seeing the result that it had for my children. That is what kind of kept pushing me along to keep searching and looking. And again, we're not perfect people, and we have lots of dips, and being kids at a certain age, you can kind of control what they eat a little bit because you're the one making the food. But there comes a time when, like you said, that they start making choices on their own. If we can start when they're little, it doesn't mean that they're never going to have the dips. It just means that they've had some educational pieces that they can kind of take along. But I will say it was challenging when you go to school because everybody's eating the bags of chips and the this and the that, and then they're coming to school with something that appears to be odd because it's not the traditional sandwich, chips, and whatever. And so that was a little bit interesting to maneuver with the kids because it's okay. It's okay for somebody else to do something else if that works for them.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean it's not going to affect them in the long run, just as though, if this works for you now, it could affect you differently in the long run. It's just taking little tiny steps as you go. But one of the things that I find to be interesting now is my 17-year-old, who was always the most difficult one with the challenging of what we were doing at home, which is okay, because I think that's good. You need to challenge to understand.
Yeah.
But she has made a couple of comments recently. One, we were out to eat, and she said, it was like a little organic cafe. And she said, most people that this is delicious. And I said, oh my gosh, it is. We love when we find little places that actually have clean, good food. And she said, what's funny is, she said, most people would think it's gross. And I said, you're right, because their taste buds are really conditioned to think that would not be good, because it just tastes different when we're used to and we crave certain things.
Absolutely.
The other kind of profound thing she said to me that has stuck with me is, if you stock your home with mostly healthy choices, then you're going to make healthy choices. It's when you bring in things that are inflammatory, things that don't work for you, things that are triggers for you. When you have all of that in your face, it's hard to make good choices sometimes.
Absolutely.
So she's like, stock your pantry well and you'll make good choices. And I'm like, oh, wow, that seems so simple. It's not, it's hard.
It's not. Yeah. But and that's, that's so much further than your pantry. That's life. I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
You put yourself in situations where you're going to have your temptations, you're more likely to fall back into that. I know that for a fact, because in my past, that was where I always struggled, was like going back to those same people or same situations, expecting it. You can't get a different outcome. You're going to fall back into those old patterns. You're going to fall back into that if you surround yourself with that. And, another thing too, I want to point out is with the gym story that you were saying, how this is why I love encouraging women to try new things and to do things, because something you go about thinking, well, this is a little thing, it's free, whatever, blah, 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 or whatnot. You just go thinking one little thing, but you don't even realize what experiences, what things can come about from just putting yourself out there, trying new things. I'm all about getting out of your comfort zone and being like spontaneous, tasting little things like that. But that's what I love about that story, because it's a prime example of how you go into one thing thinking something small, like, oh, okay, whatever, let's just do this and go home, whatever. But it ended up being a life transformation that led you on your path to where you're meant to be and where you are today, which is beautiful. I love it. I love your story. This is great. Now, your older one, is she pretty good about the foods and
most things? But again, she's 20 now, but it took her to go through her own dip and to figure out what didn't work for her. And at this point, for both my girls, it's really, I feel like you become more of just the guide on the side. You're there to provide, but they really need to go through their own challenges and make their own choices to have the lifestyle outcome.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Because what you do now, that's one thing you've taught them, because what you do now does affect your later. And I think so many of us take that for granted, because we're thinking, oh, it's not going to hurt to have this burger or this thing, blah, 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 because it feels so good in the moment, but you don't realize what that's going to develop over time and then what's going to do. And that's why I think what you're doing is so needed for those who want to be self-conscious about their body and their health, because if you really want to have a more fulfilling life and to live where you feel better, and if it affects your moods, your mental health, I mean, why wouldn't you want to pursue things that could help you to feel good on a day-to-day basis? And you're right, you're always going to have your ups and downs. You got to get through the flow. You got to, have to have your little rebelliousness, because how else are you going to grow and kind of, like you say, figure it out for yourself? And that's what I was like as a teenager. I was extremely rebellious. So, I'm thankful that I grew out of that and I matured and learned from my mistakes rather than keep following them. So I think that's awesome.
So one of the questions I want to ask you, because, I think a lot of people at your age and say a similar thing, like, well, I was more rebellious, but I learned, from my mistakes. What if we reframe that, and those challenges that you went through were meant for you to go through so that you could have light on the other side? Sometimes we have to go through those dark moments. Number one, our brains are not fully developed until our mid-20s. That plays a huge role in choices, a huge role in the choices that we make, but it also leads us to something that's what I call like the dark and the light. It leads us to the light of where, better things are that you've created because of the experience you had.
You're right. And I love that, the reframing, because that's something I, always am pushing for and working on even myself every time, is reframing my old language, because I wouldn't be who I am. And I wouldn't even be with my amazing husband today. We talk about that all the time. Like, we have no regrets, even though there was like horrible things in our past or things that we experienced or relationships, blah, blah, said, but it all prepared us for each other. It all led us to each other. If anything else had changed, we may not have met. We may not be the person that we are today. So you're right. It's something to embrace. And that's one thing I love, is I've learned my past does not define who I am.
Absolutely.
It does not have to dictate who I am or where I go in life. I do. And that's why I think it's so important. I push for like now, because now is the time to make that difference for yourself. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter where you're at. Now is the time to start making that change. And once you make that decision to do it, my goodness, the doors of opportunities, the people, the things that you attract, it's incredible. And that's what I want to help so many other moms to realize and to see. We were so conditioned to believe we're not good enough, we're not capable. And it's so not true. So not true.
And I love what you said. When you make the choice to change the way you think, that's the golden ticket.
Yeah.
That is the ticket to opportunities. It's the ticket for the possibilities to open up. It doesn't mean that you don't have, what I call, either big trauma, little trauma, however you want to talk about trauma or however you want to phrase it, things, that maybe you grew up with that you need to work through. Those are all things that are possible to do, once you set your mind on understanding that it doesn't define you, it is a part of you and it's a part of who you have been, but that doesn't mean that's where you have to stay for eternity. It means that you can make the choice that that's not serving you or the purpose in which you are here to serve other people. If it's not working for you, it's about boundaries. It's about relationship boundaries and moving on. And again, all of that though affects your health and wellness, and people departmentalize that as that is not part of your health, but it really truly is. And when you were mentioning about burgers and things and food in general, my biggest thing is learn how to read your ingredients. When you understand your ingredients, so many more things open up for you when you understand what inflammatory foods actually are and what they do to your body. And then what are those ingredients that you're looking for on your list? So for example, like the first thing I talk with people about because most people have chronic inflammation. We have inflammation in our body for a purpose. If we get cut, it inflames, it starts to heal itself and all of that. But when you have low grade chronic inflammation that keeps going and going and going, it's kind of like that thing, it makes your body break down. So when we're looking at inflammatory foods, oils is the first thing that we always go over. And so canola oil, vegetable oil, grapeseed oil, all the seed oils, and again, if you're somebody who needs the facts, it's the way that it's produced. There's a chemical breakdown. And so that then emits and it makes it an inflammatory oil. And so that is something that you would want to kind of remove, but instead of, I can't have that, let's put in what you can have. So the oils that you would want to include would be coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, ghee, things that have more nutrient dense value to it for you. And so you'll be surprised when you start looking at labels. If you're someone that hasn't dumped into this at all, read your labels of the boxes that you buy. And unfortunately, that stuff's in a lot of the foods because it's cheap. It helps them make an extra dollar. And honestly, unfortunately, food companies are driven by business dollar. And so it's not everybody. And I will say there are plenty of people nowadays. 20 years ago, it was very hard to find clean or less processed food instead of the ultra processed. So now I think we do have the ability to vote with our dollars, spend money on the companies that are little, that are doing right, but don't forget to continue to check, because there is times where I've been duped, what is what I call it, but where a company sells out, Tom's is an example, Tom's toothpaste. For a while, they were really clean and then they sold out to Colgate. And so for me, or I think it was Burt's Bees actually.
Really?
Burt's Bees. Yeah. They sold out to somebody and I was just like, okay, well now we're done with that. And so it's kind of one of those things, but everything is possible as long as you are open to learning and making small changes. Nothing is going to happen overnight, and giving yourself grace and trying one little change a week, that's going to add up to where the lifestyle comes in. Health and wellness is not a quick fix. It's not a 30-day diet. It's not let's remove an entire food group for the rest of our life. It's just, that's not how our bodies were made. But
absolutely. I mean, I can tell you right now, recently, I just realized, and I still haven't figured it out, but there was my husband takes this AG1 shake that's really, really healthy. But when I drank it, I couldn't breathe. Like I started feeling like my lungs, I just couldn't breathe. I was getting shortness of breath. And so at first I thought it was a dupe. So I waited like a month or so and then I did it again. And I had the exact same reaction. So someone was like, oh, you're probably allergic to something in it. But what is that? I don't know. So my mother-in-law got me this organic, all greens kind of thing that doesn't have, I forget what she said it was, some kind of grass herb in it that she thinks that might be what I'm allergic to. Took 2 little sips of that, same reaction. So I'm even trying to break down and realize what does work for my body, what does work for me as far as that, because I want to be more health conscious. I want to take better care of myself. So it is something I'm actually on a journey of discovering myself. It's like, what am I having this reaction? What am I possibly allergic to that I need to be cautious and mindful of with the foods that I eat, the drinks that I drink, while trying to
for sure
nutrition.
Right. And I'm really glad that you are going down the experimental journey and that you noticed that it wasn't working for you. And, and my advice is just be cautious and careful as you're moving through that.
Yes.
But the other question I would have is, what is mainly in that drink that you're not getting on a daily basis?
A lot of things.
Okay.
Probably
So is there, so I
Yeah.
think maybe something you could experiment with is, adding a few more vegetables in on a daily basis, just to see
Yes.
if that works better for you and you don't have a reaction, because again, you're looking for the vitamins, you're looking for the nutrition. And I always say, start with food first.
Wow.
And I'm not saying the supplemental drinks and the green drinks don't have a place and aren't good for you, but
yes.
if you're having a reaction,
Yes.
your body's talking to you and saying something in that is not meshing. But I do think you need to figure out what it is if you can. So that way, as you keep going on your journey, you don't stumble into something that, could then really have a severe allergic reaction.
Exactly. Yes. And that's something that's be more and more mindful, and I'm loving it. It's definitely a journey. I love that I have a husband who's very health conscious. I love that because he helps me so much. He almost watches out for me, and he knows.
That's awesome.
I've always neglected that because, like I said, I didn't grow up with that kind of structure, and I wanted it for my kids. It's really actually challenging right now. My 2-year-old son is extremely picky. He will not eat. I had to give him protein shakes just to get some kind of nutrition in him, because he will not eat meat. He will not eat vegetables. He will not eat fruits. He'll eat something here and there, but it's like he'll, eat a little bit and then throw it to the dogs.
Right.
So it's really, really hard to make sure that it's like, is he really getting what he needs, but so far the doctors think that at least his weight and everything is on the spectrum. It's not like it's really low. It's like 65%. So it's not like concerning too much, but it worries us. It really does.
Yeah. I think something when they're that little is just keep providing opportunities for food to be available for him. And they are very picky. Their palate's not really there, and your palate changes very often. So, if he likes one particular food and it's a fruit, vegetable, or, something, then just let him have it, let him have a lot of that one thing. But, you can always talk to your pediatrician about making sure that, his levels and all of his vitamins and minerals are good. But I think a lot of times kids at that age just go through the quirks, and yeah, and their palates change so often until, and even into the teen years, your palate's always shifting and changing. And so don't stress him out about it, because then that just provides a different environment for him. You want it to be a food friendly environment for him, but just keep offering, and you'll probably be surprised at when you just keep offering the things, how all of a sudden they pick up like one or two things. And I mean, I think my one child ate sweet potatoes at every meal, just because it was like, she just kept asking for it. It was like sweet potatoes and carrots because they're sweet.
Yeah.
And then I just the other thing that I did learn at that early age was mixing in vegetables into
Foods,
muffins and, things.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that cookbook was called, but it was a good cookbook and it worked. And they never knew that, we hid stuff in stuff. And
that's good.
So, but I think we do worry about our kids. And I think that's where it starts for most moms. We start worrying about our kids, and then we're like, oh, well, we need to get it together because we've got to be, this for them. And right. And so, I love talking to other moms because we're all on the same journey, whether you're a young mom, a seasoned mom. There's struggles at every level of having children, challenges, not struggles, but challenges, and when you have the support of community and you have people going through your same season of life, it just makes you feel seen and heard and understood. Yeah. And women need that. I don't know, I'm not a man and I don't know, exactly how they tick. I know they're very different than us, but it's like women need that village. And funny, because I know you're like far from it, but with kids going off to college, I'm like, oh my gosh, like we need a bigger village now, because it's like we've been parenting for 20 years and then they leave. Yeah. And then it's like this void, and it's great because you want your kids. That's what you do. That's why you raise your kids the way you do, is so they can fly and be successful and independent and all the things. But then when you've been doing that mom job, it's like you lost the job, but you
I
still
know.
love the person.
Exactly. Well, and I actually have a 15-year-old son who's in high
Okay.
school. He's a sophomore now. So it's like, oh my goodness, I do have this crazy range. And it's like, I'm so proud of the man he's already becoming. He's such a
Yes.
great guy. So, but yeah, you're right. It's so weird to see the journeys, the difference. The difference is even in when you have multiple kids. Like you have
Yeah.
like I said, we have a daughter who's 4. She'll eat black olives, pickles, anything.
Right.
She always was so not picky. And I think I tell my husband sometimes, like, everyone's different. You can't really compare them like that because what one likes, another one's not. And it's like that with all of us.
I love that you have a range of kids, because I
Yes.
think that sophomore year, and when they turn 16 and start driving, that's when things get a little bit like, whoa, wait a second, this is a different season of life. And so 2's different, 4 is different, 15's different, 20 is different, but no matter what the age of your children, having support and community makes such a world of a difference when you're going through this experience.
Absolutely. That's what I'm so about with everything as far as supporting and encouraging women. I feel like I grew up with a lot of women who were always comparing ourselves. We were always comparing ourselves, always felt like we were in competition with each other. And I'm like, why be like that? Like, why not just support? There's enough for everyone. I love to have abundance mindset because
Yes.
it's so important to realize like there is plenty out there for all of us. I mean, even if there was like, 10,000 people doing the same thing as you, they still couldn't reach all the people in this world that need that. Not to mention that, like you say, we all have our unique differences. So where some people might like my personalities, other might not like it. So they could be reached by somebody else who's more like them. And I think that's why it's so important for us to come together, support one another, encourage one another, love one another. And it is truly, truly my passion and what I'm all about and what I want to do for as many people as I can reach.
That's awesome. And you're going to do a great job, because I love your personality. I think it's perfect for somebody who's trying to grow. One of the things you just said, about having, opportunities and it could be 10,000 people doing the same thing and you still can reach people. I encourage people to also think that same mindset when it comes to the people who are on board for your journey, your health and wellness journey, because again, we get to that doctor phase, or we get to the health or the like fitness coach phase, or we get to something and we think that we're stuck with that person, and we might not mesh with that person, and that's okay. And there are 20 million of every kind of doctor, there's 20 million fitness coaches, there's 20 million meditation people. You've got to find what works for you. And that might be different. And how you were saying, like, we feel judged, or we feel like someone's looking at us. It makes us paralyzed in making choices. And so that is something, again, that as we become older as adults, we need to learn to overcome and stand up for what is right for us. And one of the things that you also just said that made me think of, supporting people as moms, there are a lot of times where what I see is we care so much about our children, we forget about ourselves. And self-care is so big. And if you're not having any kind of self-care and you start losing yourself over the years, that does play into not being well. It does play into, not being who you really are. But you have to take time to provide yourself with that. And it's not selfish, and I know that's like a saying, it's like self-care is not selfish, but if you really methodically go through it, if you're not caring for yourself, you cannot physically care for the people around you in your best form.
Exactly. And not only that, like one other thing that I like to share with the women that I work with is that think about the example you're setting for your own kids. If they see that you're constantly sacrificing yourself, that you're constantly putting your own needs away, what are you teaching them? That their needs don't matter, that what they want, their dreams don't matter, that they're not allowed to go after their aspirations. So it's what's even motivated me to start my journey towards what I want to do, because I want my kids to see that. I want them to grow up seeing, oh man, look at mom working, for what she loves, passionate about what she wants. That makes me inspired to want to do that for myself, because I want them to believe in themselves and know that they can do whatever it is that they want to do. And I want them to go after it no matter what.
And not be afraid, to fit in a mold, and not be afraid to fit in the quote unquote I've got to go to school, I've got to go to college, and I've got to get a high paying job, because it's just, that's the rat race to me. And so interestingly, that's the conversation I have with my kids all the time. It's like, college is meant for you to discover. College is meant for you to try on new things and see how it feels. And do not pick something just because you think the paycheck's going to be good, unless you're passionate about it. Very, different. If that's what lights you up, that's fine. But we just have so many more opportunities today than we even did when I first started working. Like, nobody was doing their own thing. Everybody was still pigeonholed into a particular job and whatnot. And I think nowadays we just have so many amazing avenues that we can go down that's less traditional, but provide you with purpose, provide you with filling a passion, and provide you with income that's going to make you want to do what you're doing every day.
Exactly. We really live, you're right, in an amazing time. And with social media out there too, it's only growing and growing. And even with my 15-year-old, he started working his first job just this summer in landscaping, just because I wanted him to get the experience and hopefully scare him from you. Like, this is why you go after your dreams, and you don't get stuck in that kind of job. You don't want to live your life working just to get by. Like, that's like, for so many of us for so long have gotten trapped in, because we feel like we can't leave the job, because how are we going to pay our bills? So we just kind of put it aside that we could even pursue this. But there's so much evidence out there for you to find that people do it anyways, even if they start small, which is totally the best way to go about it. A lot of times, start small, but build your way up. And the next thing you know, you can walk away from that job. You can get away from that. You can actually live a life that you love. And it's amazing. And it's so possible. And I'm proud to be where I'm at, going after it. And I love meeting women like you who are also in that same place. It's wonderful. And I just hope to keep it up.
Absolutely. And I know you will. And I know your podcast is going to be amazing. And, it's interesting. We had a little conversation prior to the show, but podcasting was never in my wildest dreams something that I thought I would ever do. I was the very insecure little, middle schooler who took zeros on every stand-up presentation that had to be done, because I feared and hated public speaking and all the things, because my body would literally have this attack almost of like, just, it was terrible. And so I worked it out to where I knew this is terrible, but that instead of trying to overcome that fear, instead of pushing through, I calculated out if I got a zero on every one, I'd end with a C, and that would be good enough. And I would get through the class. And it's like, so for me, I see that little girl who was insecure, that's what it was. It was an insecurity of not believing in myself and the power of speaking and the things, and fast forwarding now to 50, having a podcast, it is so much fun. It is so out of my comfort zone, but it is so much fun. I'm just enjoying all the people that I get to meet on my, the people I bring on my show. I also love doing the solo episodes. I love my audience and hearing from my audience and what they want. And honestly, I just, again, never thought in my wildest dreams this would be something that would be kind of entwined into my life, but I couldn't have planned it. I wouldn't have planned it, but I'm absolutely loving it. And so
aren't those the best things sometimes, the things that don't get planned, but just
that's right.
And you just embrace it and you're just like, okay, let's go with this. Like, I used to think about doing podcasting a couple of years ago, but I felt like, okay, well, how do I really go about it? I didn't know anything about it. Next thing I know, I'm in this coaching world and I'm falling in love with being a life coach. And so I pursue that. And then that's when I met Kathy.
Right.
And she has changed my life with it, because she made it really easy and realize like the possibilities of it all. And you're right. It's so much fun. It's wonderful meeting all the new women that you bring on to the show and just kind of hearing their stories and just getting that empowerment, that collaboration. Sometimes it's beautiful. It's totally unexpected, not planned, but I'm so thankful for it. And this is why I encourage people, try new things. Get out there, just try it. Just, because I know what that's like. I grew up with a lot of insecurities. I hated myself. Oh my God. I was so mean to myself growing up, but it was overall my core, it was rejection. That was my initial fear, as was always feeling like I'm going to get rejected. And that's what kept me and held me back from being me. And
showing who you truly are. You've
Exactly.
always been
Don't be
you.
me,
It's
but yeah,
just,
exactly.
yeah.
Showing up as me. And I am so thankful to be in a place where I am. I'm embracing who I am, and I'm unapologetic about it, because I'm tired of feeling like I have to walk on eggshells around people. And I'm tired of feeling like I'm not allowed to feel beautiful. I'm not allowed to embrace my uniqueness and who I am. I am who I am. And if you don't like that, then, that's okay. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to follow me, but I hope so, because I want to genuinely help, in any way that I can, and encourage.
Yeah, no, I totally hear you. And I think a lot of people, get to an age, 30s, 40s, 50s, where they start to uncover what the true challenge was or is that is holding them back from being their unique, authentic self. And so I hope, my prayer for everybody would be that everybody finds out what that is and works through it so they can live their most authentic life. Because really, what's the purpose if not? It's like we have a voice, we have a purpose, we have a passion, and we should be living it fully as long as we can. And that's why when I was coming up with like my business name and my podcast name, like Live Life Balanced, was just, it resonated with me, because life is a balancing act and it's also a continual journey. And so we want to learn how to live in a way that's sustainable, that helps us to have our best balance, so that we can be fulfilled in all areas of life, not just food, not just, spirituality, not just home, the whole package, basically.
Whole package. Exactly. I love it. For you listeners, Robin Jonas, you got to go check out her show for sure. I thank you so much for being part of my show. I cannot thank you enough.
Oh, I love it.
Yes, I hope we got to do this again. This is a lot of fun. I enjoy things like this. I hope to be able to be on your show sometime. I would love it. Yes, we'll definitely have to connect and keep in touch with this. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
No, I will give to you, since primary foods is new for most people, I'm going to give you a little link that you can drop in the show notes so people can check out actually what it is. Awesome. And take a little, I don't know if it's a quiz, but just do a little activity that will show how they're feeling in each area, so they have something they can start to work on. And then, I'll give you all whatever, my contact and where they can find me and all of that stuff. We'll just drop in the show notes. So
we'll definitely be able to do that. Absolutely. So again, thank you so much for being a part of my show, and I hope you have a blessed day.
You too. Okay. Thank you so much.
I hope you all enjoyed the show. Thank you for listening. It was such a pleasure having Robin Jonas on. Here are some takeaways from today's show. In this enlightening podcast episode, we delve into the world of holistic health. We discover the profound importance of supporting and empowering women to prioritize their health and wellness. Robin's personal journey, fueled by her children's health issues, reveals the transformative power of alternative approaches and the interconnectedness of our body systems. There is value of finding the root cause of health issues, advocating for a holistic approach over reliance on medications. The discussion highlights the need to educate ourselves and our children about health to make informed decisions, thus taking control of our well-being. Robin's coaching style introduces the concept of primary foods, non-dietary factors like joy and relationships, and secondary foods like your diet, to provide a comprehensive approach to health. And be sure to click the link below to get your free activity she shared, for you to get a better understanding of how you feel in each of those areas. The conversation underscores the uniqueness of every individual's health journey, rejecting the one-size-fits-all approach. The significance of reducing processed sugar intake and making healthier dietary choices is stressed, offering a practical step towards better well-being. Ultimately, this podcast reminds us that holistic health isn't just about what's on your plate. It's about embracing personalized approaches, understanding how factors like gut health and heritage impact our well-being, and supporting one another on our unique journeys to better health. If you want to follow Robin, you can find her information below in the show notes. Be sure to visit her website at www.livelifebalancewithrobin.com. Also, be sure to go and subscribe and listen to her podcast that she has now named the 1% Shift Podcast. Finally, if you want to support us, be sure to subscribe to my podcast and leave me a review and share with me your story or what you want to hear about on this show. It is truly appreciated. I love you all and want us to support one another on our journeys, so it means so much that you tune in with me. Much love.